Heading into the 2021 season, I think there were plenty of questions about this Philadelphia Eagles team. What type of quarterback was Jalen Hurts going to develop into in year number 2? What type of flashes was he going to show? New head coach Nick Sirianni, that hire seemed to come out of nowhere. Was he really qualified for the job? How was he going to do being in charge of his whole damn team? Lots of questions there. And there probably, to be fair, still some questions there. Maybe you're okay with Nick Sirianni, but maybe you still have some questions about Jalen Hurts. But the reality is the Eagles had a pretty good season in 2021. Right? Making the playoffs for them was a win. I mean, yeah, they didn't play particularly well in the wild card round against the Buccaneers, but that wasn't all a loss. Now, when I think about the Eagles and you look a couple of years ago and the salary cap hell they were in and the position that they were in, and you look at where they're at now with the needle pointing upwards, the trajectory moving forward in a good way, it's been really good work by this Philadelphia Eagles front office. And I respect the fact that they are not just resting on the laurels of saying, hey, well, we made the playoffs last year, let's just keep the chemistry entirely as it is and let's see if we can progress. No, the Eagles are being aggressive, as they should be. They went out and made the big deal to go bring in A.J. Brown. Good for them. Like all that maneuvering they did in the draft with the Saints in terms of the picks, and then they take one of those first-round picks and they send them off for A.J. Brown. Hard to believe they would have found somebody in the draft at that spot that would have a bigger potential impact on this team than A.J. Brown in 2022. Now you're bringing him into the fold, and he could be the wide receiver 1 to Devontae Smith's wide receiver 2. That's a really, really nice situation for a young quarterback like Jalen Hurts entering year 3. Then in the offseason, they beefed up their defense a little bit more, which was good to see. They signed Hassan Reddick, signed James Bradbury, signed Kazir White. So they brought in some starters that they really needed. Then you go to the draft. They bring in Jordan Davis. Be interested to see how he fits alongside Fletcher Cox. As Jordan Davis is a monster. He's a freak. And if he can play up to the athletic skills, Philadelphia could have a monster. Cam Jurgens might not play much. I'm not sure. On the interior of the offensive line, but he might be the long-term replacement for Jason Kelce at center. Nakobe Dean, a lot of people thought was a big steal for the Eagles in round 3. I'd be surprised if he's not a starter at some point this year in their linebacking core. They've got some rookies that could have some impact now or at least down the road. Plenty of reason, I think, for optimism with this Eagles team to some degree. You're still going to have some questions. They're not a perfect team by any stretch of the imagination. But this is a team, like I said, the needle seems to be pointing up with them a little bit. I like their offensive line. They're really good at the bookend tackles with Mailata and Lane Johnson. You've still got Kelce on the interior, anchoring the line. Their receiving core, I already mentioned A.J. Brown. You've got Devontae Smith. And then you throw Dallas Goedert into the mix. And you're any type of quarterback. That's not a terribly bad situation to have as your top 3 targets. Is the best in the league? No. Is it certainly well above the top half of the league? Oh, absolutely. How many teams could you point to and say, in terms of your 3 targets in the passing game, that you have a better combination? Think about that. A better combination than those 3 guys that Jalen Hurts will have. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. That's really, really good. And then you look at this Eagles team, one thing they were able to do last year, they're certainly, you would expect going to be able to do this year, is be able to run the ball. Even though Miles Sanders isn't great, when he does get the opportunities to tote the rock, he's pretty efficient in terms of a yards per carry standpoint. Jalen Hurts is a great runner with the ball. This is a team that's going to find a way to be able to grind out yards on the ground, which will keep them in games, which will keep their offense balanced. There's still concerns here about this team. I look at them, I wonder where the pass rush is going to come. And I look at them defensively last year. While their defense wasn't a horrible unit, they had some really, really bad games. They had 6 games where they gave up 28 points or more. And wasn't it 2 of them they gave up 40 or more, and then they had another game where, wasn't it the Cowboys, they gave up over 50? They've got to be more consistent on the defensive end. And then what they've really got to have is Jalen Hurts take a big step forward in year 3. Because now you're reaching the point in time, if you're the Eagles, you're at that kind of critical fulcrum point of, Is Jalen Hurts going to be the guy or not? Is he going to be the guy or not? There wasn't really a pathway or avenue you felt to upgrade the quarterback position, either via trade market, free agency, or the draft in this past offseason. So you're rolling with him again. You've put him in a good spot. You've got good talent around him. Now he's got to show it. Can he be proficient enough as a pocket passer to where the Eagles can sit there and potentially justify to themselves sinking $40+ million into him? I mean, that's ultimately what this comes down to. And I could sit there and say, you could call this the $200 million year, because that's what 2022 is in a lot of ways for the Eagles, is they're going to have to make a decision on whether or not they're going to eventually pay Jalen Hurts $200+ million. If I was them right now, I certainly would be prepared to not do that. But if you have enough progress and you see enough growth and you see even more success this year out of Hurts as a passer and out of the Eagles as a team, it might change the conversation a little bit. And the great thing about it is you technically don't have to make that decision after 2022, because Hurts will still have another year on the rookie contract. But it might be wise to lock it in while you can, if you can. But maybe you wait and let it play out. But it's critical. They need Hurts to take a step forward. I thought I saw some progression or growth from him in 2021, but he's got quite a ways to go to close the gap between him and Dak Prescott in terms of being the best quarterback in that division, that's for sure. Now, in terms of the Eagles, the schedule makers, I think, did them a bit of a favor to start off the year. I look at their first 4 weeks of the schedule, and I point to that, and I say, those are 4 potentially logically winnable games for the Eagles. I mean, they're going to win all 4 of them. I'm just saying, they go to Detroit week 1, host Minnesota week 2, at Washington week 3, host Jacksonville week 4. You look at those, and none of those 4 games should terrify you if you're an Eagles fan or have you really worried. It doesn't mean you get overconfident. What that means is you could be looking at an Eagles team that after 4 weeks could be 3-1. They could even be 4-0. And if they're there, that puts them in a powerful spot, especially heading into their week 6 matchup at home against Dallas. And that's going to be a big one. You want to be able to set the tone early. The Cowboys won that division last year. You want to win this division this year. You want to get it a minimum that home playoff game. You got to handle business against the Cowboys. You can't be getting boat raced by them. No getting boat raced by them. And that's a big spot right there for them in week 6. And then later on in the season, when you talk about playing a potential easier slate of schedules, I focus on this one. The schedule makers balanced it out a little bit because weeks 14 through 16, the Eagles have 3 straight road games. They're going to the Giants, to the Bears, and to Dallas. And you could say, well, that's not so rough outside of maybe the Dallas game. But we don't know what the Giants are going to be under Brian Daboll. We don't know what the Bears are going to be under a full year of Justin Fields and Matt Eberflus as the head coach. Never mind the fact that it's just really, really hard to win on the road in the NFL, period. Let alone having to do that 3 consecutive games late into the season going into mid to late December, when you're beat up and your team's probably lost some depth due to injuries and so forth. But that said, I'm a little bullish on the Eagles this year. I'm not going to sit there and call them a contender. Absolutely not. But do I think this is a team that can win double-digit games? Do I think this is a team that can win a home playoff game? I absolutely do. I absolutely do. Because they've got some good pieces around Jalen Hurts, and if he takes a step forward at all, I would fully expect the Eagles to be able to win the NFC East this year.